Welcome to the channel, thank you for checking out today's video. In this video we're going to be looking at crop sensor cameras. Maybe you already own a crop sensor camera, or you're considering buying one, or maybe you own a full frame camera and you're considering buying a crop sensor camera as a backup secondary camera. But you're constantly being told that crop sensor cameras ain't the way forward. You might have heard something like this: crop sensor cameras are for amateurs and hobbyists only. Crop sensor cameras produce lower quality images than that of full frame cameras. Crop sensor cameras are rubbish in low light situations. Crop sensor lenses are lower quality than that of full frame glass. Full frame cameras produce better bokeh. Well, in this video I'm going to be busting all these myths about crop sensor cameras, and we're going to start off with the first one, which is crop sensor cameras are only for hobbyist and amateur photographers. Yes, crop sensor cameras are for hobbyists and amateurs, but not exclusively. To say you can't use a crop sensor camera in a professional setting, it's kind of like saying you can't be a professional athlete if you have a small nose or you have small ears. It literally makes no sense at all. This all stems from the camera industry labelling crop sensor cameras as entry-level cameras. What does that even mean? What does entry-level actually mean? Technology has advanced so much that most crop sensor cameras these days have the same features as their full frame equivalent: autofocus systems, tracking systems, burst rates, etc. And some of these features on a crop sensor camera can actually outperform the same features on full frame cameras. And dare I say it, some of these features on crop sensor cameras are actually restricted by camera companies so that they can push the sale with full frame equivalents. Why sell you a camera at £1,000 when they can push the more expensive full frame cameras starting at £2,500 plus? Some of you might be saying though that you rely on full frame cameras because they normally come with dual SD card slots, and you rely on the backup just in case something was to go wrong with the original SD card. Well, that would make sense, but there's just one problem with that. SD cards have improved so much over the years that they're not as unreliable as what they used to be. The chances of an SD card actually failing is about the same as any one of your components in your camera failing. So if you're thinking about having a backup on your SD card, you're probably better taking two cameras. Next, we're going to be looking at the myth that crop sensor cameras produce a lower quality image to that of a full frame equivalent. So, image quality. Surely if there's a difference between a crop sensor camera and full frame camera in image quality, you would be able to tell, right? Well, let's see. I'm going to show you now 10 images, 5 of which are taken on a crop sensor camera and 5 that are taken on a full frame camera. It's up to you to decipher which is taken on what. Make sure you stay to the end of the video because that's when I'm going to reveal the results, but let me show you these 10 images right now. Now I know what some of you will be saying. They're not even comparable shots. The composition is all wrong with them. You've not even told us the camera settings. How are we meant to tell what's the difference? But isn't that the whole point of this exercise? If you need to know the camera settings or comparable compositions to work out which photo is taken with which camera, then surely that proves it's not about the camera itself, but the camera operator that makes the biggest difference. Make sure you hang around to the end of the video. That's when I'm going to be revealing the results of what image is taken with which camera. Now I've also done a comparison video on image quality between crop sensor and full frame cameras. I'm going to pin it in the top comment. Make sure you check out that video after you've watched this one. On to the next myth, which is crop sensor cameras are rubbish in low light situations. This whole myth is over the confusion of the crop factor in crop sensor cameras. Most people know that to get the same focal length from a full frame camera on a crop sensor camera, you have to multiply the focal length of the lens on the crop sensor camera by the crop factor, which is normally around 1.5 depending on what brand of camera you own. As an example, if we had a 75mm lens on a full frame camera, we would need a 50mm lens on a crop sensor camera, because 50mm times the 1.5 crop factor equals 75mm. But what many people don't realise is you also have to multiply the aperture by the crop factor to get comparable results of a lens on a full frame camera. So a lens with an aperture of f2.8 on a crop sensor camera, we multiply that by the crop factor of 1.5, that gives us an actual aperture of f4.2 on a full frame camera. And would you expect to get the same low light performance with an aperture at f4.2 as you would an aperture of f2.8? Of course you wouldn't. What you'd have to do with the aperture at f4.2 is raise the ISO to match the exposure from both cameras. But if we take out a crop sensor camera with a lens at an aperture of f2.8 and a full frame camera with a lens set at aperture f4.2 and take similar shots, and we adjust the ISO so that we get the correct exposure of both systems, the results are almost identical. Some of you might be saying then that this proves that crop sensors are rubbish in low light, but not really. It would be like taking two identical pizzas, putting them into two different ovens which are set at different temperatures, but expecting them to come out cooked exactly the same in the same amount of time. It isn't going to happen. So it's not the fact that crop sensor cameras are rubbish in low light. It just means that most people haven't taken into account the crop factor on their apertures. So that one is myth busted. On to the next one. The next myth we're going to be looking at is that full frame camera lenses are superior to crop sensor lenses. Now this one is really hard to prove or disprove. With so many native lenses and third-party lenses, we could literally be here all day just looking at the quality of lenses. But what I'm going to do is show you one way to negate any of this. Let me show you how to do that right now. Here we have a full frame camera with a full frame lens, and here we have a crop sensor camera with a crop sensor lens. Remove the crop sensor lens from the crop sensor camera, then remove the full frame lens from the full frame camera, and then what you do is you mount the full frame lens onto your crop sensor camera. It really is as simple as that. So that's another one ticked off our list. Let's go on to the final one, that is full frame cameras produce better bokeh than crop sensor cameras. So earlier on in the video we took a look at the aperture and the crop factor and how it affects the low light performance of our crop sensor cameras. Well, that's exactly the same for our bokeh. Because we have to multiply our crop factor by the lens's aperture, we get a different result to that of a full frame camera. Let's say we have a lens with an aperture of f1.8 on a crop sensor camera. We multiply that by our crop factor, which is usually around 1.5, which gives us an actual aperture of f2.7 on a full frame camera. Once we take into account these parameters, we actually find that a full frame camera and a crop sensor camera produce almost identical results. And there you have it. Thank you very much for watching this video. Oh, you want the results from the images that I showed you earlier on. Okay, before I tell you them results, if you've got anything at all from this video, even if it's just a cheap laugh, give it a big thumbs up, comment below what you'd like to see in a future video, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, hit that subscribe button. If you do want to quickly go back and write down your answers about which image is from the full frame and which one's from a crop sensor, do it right now. But here's the results of them images. I'm going to show you them right now. So there you have it. How many did you get right? Let me know in the comments also. But thank you very much for watching this video. If you did get anything out of it, like I said, give it a big thumbs up. And we'll catch up in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, also make sure you check out that pinned comment and watch that video also. We'll see you soon, guys.